The bruises, some of the bruises were in the shape of a belt buckle.
Man, I ain't gonna let you sit here and say.
Eliz Ortiz Neves. Let's head to Kent County Circuit Court where we examine the disturbing case of Ellis Ortiz Neves, a Kent County man convicted in the beating death of a 4-year-old boy. Take a seat in the courtroom as we explore the harrowing details of this case and Eliz's reaction to his sentencing. Ellis Nelson Ortiz Neves, a resident of Kent County, Michigan, stands at the center of a chilling case that has rocked the local community. At just 25 years old, Ortiz Neves found himself facing the full force of the law after being convicted in the beating death of a 4-year-old boy. The details of this crime are nothing short of horrifying. It was on that fateful day, June 13, 2024, when Kent County deputies responded to a distress call at a Gaines Township house trailer. Ortiz Neves had been left in charge of several children, including the young victim, Giovanni Mejias. What the deputies discovered upon arrival was a scene of unimaginable horror. Giovanni Mejias, just 4 years old, was found lying on the kitchen floor, his life slipping away. The deputies immediately called for medical assistance, but it was too late. Giovanni was already in critical condition, his tiny body bearing the signs of severe abuse. An autopsy later revealed the true extent of the brutality inflicted upon this innocent child. Giovanni's cause of death was determined to be internal bleeding caused by a devastating abdominal tear. This type of injury is typically associated with adult force, not the actions of a child. It was a chilling indication of the violence that had been unleashed upon Giovanni. Forensic experts who examined the autopsy report noted additional injuries on Giovanni's body, including trauma to the top of his head, lower back, and buttocks. Shockingly, 2 of his ribs were found to be broken, evidence of previous abuse that had gone unnoticed. The young boy had suffered in silence, his pain hidden from the world. The courtroom was filled with tension and emotion as the trial of Ellis Nelson Ortiz Neves unfolded. Kent County Circuit Court Judge Mark Trusock presided over the proceedings, determined to deliver justice for Giovanni and his grieving family. As the trial progressed, the prosecution presented overwhelming evidence that left no doubt about Ortiz Neves' guilt. Throughout the trial, Ortiz Neves maintained his innocence, despite the overwhelming evidence against him. He claimed that he had never abused Giovanni, insisting that he was wrongly accused. But the judge and jury were not swayed by his denials. The tension in the courtroom reached its peak when Judge Trusock delivered his scathing condemnation of Ortiz Neves. He called him the lowest form of human life and labeled him as evil.
There is no question in my mind, sir, that you did this. You are the lowest form of human life that I've been able to observe or see. You are a monster, and quite frankly, you are evil.
After careful consideration of the evidence and the severity of the crimes committed, Judge Trusock handed down the sentence. Ortiz Neves was sentenced to mandatory life in prison without the possibility of parole for felony murder. Additionally, he received a sentence of 80 to 150 years for first-degree child abuse. As the judge delivered his sentence, Eliz Ortiz Neves suddenly grew violent as he strained against the deputies at his side. He continued to strain and struggle with the deputies until he was taken out of the courtroom. Crystal Candelario. Next, we head to court where the chilling case of Crystal Candelario is being presided upon. Candelario starved her 16-month-old daughter to death after leaving her alone to go on a vacation. Take a seat in the courtroom as we uncover the shocking truth behind Crystal Candelario, the kid killer, and witness her reaction to a life sentence without the possibility of parole. As we begin to unravel the disturbing case of Crystal Candelario, it is crucial to understand the events that led to the unthinkable act of leaving her 16-month-old daughter unattended. The story starts on a seemingly ordinary day in June 2023 in the bustling city of Cleveland. Crystal Candelario, a 32-year-old woman, resided near Lorraine Avenue and West 97th Street, where she lived with her precious daughter, Jalissa Candelario. However, what transpired next would shock the community to its core. On June 6, 2023, Crystal made a decision that would forever change the course of her life and that of her innocent child. Without any regard for Jalissa's safety and well-being, Crystal left her alone and unattended in their residence. What was meant to be a temporary absence turned into a prolonged period of abandonment. As the days turned into a week, Crystal embarked on a vacation, leaving her defenseless child behind. She traveled to Detroit, Michigan, and even ventured as far as Puerto Rico, all while her daughter remained alone and vulnerable. It wasn't until June 16, 2023, around 8 a.m., that Crystal finally returned to her residence. Upon her arrival, she was met with a devastating sight. Jalissa lay unresponsive, her tiny body showing signs of neglect and suffering. In a panic, point, Crystal immediately contacted the authorities, summoning the Cleveland Division of Police, CPD, and the Cleveland Division of Fire to the scene. Despite their best efforts, it was too late. Jalissa was pronounced deceased, her life cut short due to the unthinkable neglect she had endured. She was found in a pack-and-play pen surrounded by soiled blankets and lying on a liner stained with urine and feces. The heartbreaking scene revealed the extent of the suffering she had endured during her mother's absence. The investigation also revealed the extent of Jaylen's physical distress. Dehydration had taken a severe toll on her fragile body, further highlighting the complete lack of care she had received during those agonizing days. The shocking case of Crystal Candelario took a dramatic turn when she stood before the court to face the consequences of her actions. On February 22, 2024, Crystal entered a guilty plea, admitting her responsibility for the tragic death of her 16-month-old daughter, Jalissa Candelario. The charges brought against Crystal were nothing short of horrifying. She faced 1 count of aggravated murder and 1 count of endangering children.
As you didn't let Jalissa out of her confinement until she died, so too, you should spend the rest of your life in a cell without freedom.
The judge, recognizing the severity of the case, delivered the sentence that would forever alter Crystal's life. She was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. As the judge read out her sentence, Crystal had an unreadable look on her face that bordered between anger and sadness. Daryl Brooks.
You're a child killer, a woman killer. I cannot wait until somebody inflicts that harm on you.
At the Waukesha County Circuit Court, we delve into the chilling case of Daryl Brooks, a man who forever changed the lives of an entire community. Brace yourself as we explore the horrifying events that unfolded during the Waukesha Christmas parade attack, where Brooks mercilessly took the lives of 6 innocent people, including a child. It was supposed to be a day filled with joy and celebration as the Waukesha community gathered to enjoy the annual Christmas parade on November 21st, 2021. Families lined the streets, eagerly awaiting the arrival of festive floats and cheerful performers. Little did they know that this day would soon turn into a nightmare. At the center of this tragedy was Daryl Brooks, a troubled individual with a history of violence. Just 2 weeks before the parade attack, Brooks had been released from jail on a bail of only $1,000. This decision, later deemed inappropriately low by prosecutors, would have devastating consequences. As the parade began, the atmosphere was filled with excitement and anticipation. Families and friends gathered together, eager to create lasting memories. But amidst the laughter and cheer, a dark cloud was forming. Unbeknownst to the innocent bystanders, Brooks was plotting a heinous act that would forever scar the community. In a chilling turn of events, Brooks got behind the wheel of his SUV and drove it straight into the parade route. Panic ensued as people scrambled to get out of harm's way. Brooks showed no mercy as he plowed through the crowd, mowing down anyone in his path. The sound of screams and cries filled the air as the lives of innocent men, women, and children were tragically cut short. 6 people lost their lives that day, their dreams and aspirations shattered in an instant. Among the victims was a child whose life was snuffed out before it had a chance to truly begin. As the investigation unfolded, the true extent of Brooks's actions became clear. The evidence against him was overwhelming, leaving no doubt about his guilt. The trial that followed would be marked by Brooks's erratic behavior and attempts to disrupt the proceedings.
It is unfair, and it's disrespectful to me that you think I would come in here purposely and treat this like a joke or a game.
I never said it was a joke.
What type of statement is that? Your life is not on the line. Mine is.
One by one, victims' families and survivors stepped forward, their voices trembling with a mix of grief, anger, and resilience.
You're a child killer, a woman killer. I cannot wait until somebody inflicts that harm on you.
They spoke of the nightmares that haunted their sleep, the anxiety that gripped their hearts, and the profound loss that would forever be a part of their lives. Throughout the impact statements, Daryl Brooks showed a complete lack of remorse. Flipping through a book and rolling his eyes, he displayed a callous disregard for the pain he had caused. His behavior only served to further enrage those in the courtroom, who saw him as a tangible embodiment of evil.
You're insane. I hope that the judge puts the most amount of years on your sentence, and I hope that you live in hell for the rest of your life for what you have done to all of these victims.
After a long and arduous trial, the time had come for Daryl Brooks to face the consequences of his heinous actions. Judge Jennifer Doro, presiding over the case, delivered a sentence that reflected the severity of Brooks's crimes. She handed down 6 consecutive life sentences, ensuring that he would spend the rest of his days behind bars without the possibility of parole for each person he killed during the Waukesha Christmas parade attack. But the punishment did not end there. Judge Dorow also imposed additional sentences for the numerous other charges against Brooks, each serving as a stark reminder of the lives he callously took and the pain he inflicted on the victims' families.
I got a lot to say. I got a lot to say, but I'm not going to be able to say half of it.
I don't know, because I don't know what you're going to say.
I'm innocent. I didn't do it.
Next, we head to a Newton County courtroom where Chris McNab, a notorious criminal who shocked the nation with his heinous crime, was about to be sentenced. McNab, along with his partner, was found guilty of murdering their 2-week-old daughter. Take a seat in the courtroom as we explore the horrifying details of his crime and the aftermath that led to his life sentence. Most importantly, prepare to be shocked as we witness Chris McNab's reaction to the verdict that sealed his fate. In the quiet town of Newton County, Georgia, a shocking crime unfolded that would forever haunt the community. It was a sunny morning on October 7, 2017, when a call came into the local authorities reporting a missing child. The child in question was just 15 days old, a precious baby boy named Kalia McNab. As the news spread, the entire town rallied together in a desperate search for little Kalia. The search efforts were intense, with volunteers combing through fields, forests, and bodies of water, hoping to find any trace of the missing infant. But as the hours turned into days, the hope of finding Kalia alive began to fade. The investigation took a dark turn when the focus shifted toward the child's parents, Chris McNab and Courtney Bell. It was revealed that Chris and Courtney had a tumultuous relationship marked by drug abuse and violence. As the authorities dug deeper, they uncovered a disturbing history of domestic disputes and run-ins with the law. But it was the shocking revelation of what happened on that fateful day that sent shockwaves through the community. According to the evidence presented in court, Chris McNab had become enraged during an argument with Courtney, leading to a violent outburst. In a fit of rage, he allegedly struck little Kalia, causing fatal injuries. The details of the crime were chilling. It was reported that Chris McNab, in a desperate attempt to cover up his actions, placed the lifeless body of his own child in a duffel bag and disposed of it in the woods near their trailer home. The callousness and brutality of the act left the community in disbelief. As the investigation unfolded, Chris McNab was arrested and charged with multiple offenses, including malice murder, felony murder, aggravated battery, and cruelty to children. The trial that followed was a harrowing experience for all involved, as the prosecution presented a mountain of evidence against McNab, including DNA samples and witness testimonies. After weeks of emotional testimony, the jury reached a verdict. Chris McNab was found guilty on all charges and sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole and an additional 10 years for concealing her death. However, McNab didn't seem to take the sentencing in stride as he maintained his innocence, stating in an unremorseful manner that he had nothing to do with his daughter's death.
I just don't understand how you find somebody guilty of doing something to a 15-day-old baby, because there was no evidence whatsoever that proved anything about me putting my hands on my kids. I've never done it, I never would.
Next, we uncover the horrifying story of Seth Welch and Tatiana Fusari, a couple whose actions earned them the chilling title of kid killers. Join us as we explore the shocking reactions of Seth Welch and Tatiana Fusari as they receive their life sentences for the murder of their 10-month-old daughter, Mary Welch. This tragic case sent shockwaves through the nation as the couple's religious beliefs and distrust in the medical system led to the neglect and ultimate death of their innocent child. To understand the shocking events that unfolded in the case of Seth Welch and Tatiana Fusari, we must delve into their troubled background and the circumstances that led to the untimely death of their 10-month-old daughter, Mary Welch. Child Protective Services had been involved with the family since 2014 after THC was found in the system of their eldest newborn child. This early interaction with the authorities should have raised red flags, but tragically, it was only the beginning of a series of neglectful actions. Mary Welch, at the time of her death, weighed a mere 8 pounds, a shocking revelation that highlights the severe malnutrition she endured. Despite being aware of their daughter's underweight condition, Seth Welch and Tatiana Fusari refused to seek medical assistance. Their reasons, religious beliefs, and a lack of trust in the medical system. At the time of Mary's death, 2 of the couple's 3 children had never been to a licensed doctor, a clear indication of their disregard for their children's well-being. During the initial investigation, the county sheriff testified to the unhygienic conditions of the family home. Vermin, insects, and mold were found, painting a grim picture of the environment in which Mary lived. It was a place devoid of basic cleanliness cleanliness and safety, further exacerbating the neglect she endured. An autopsy revealed chronic malnutrition was the cause of her death. The doctor who performed the autopsy firmly believed that the withholding of food and water by Seth Welch and Tatiana Fusari had led to the infant's suffering. It is a chilling realization that Mary's life was cut short due to the deliberate actions of her parents. The death of Mary Welch prompted Child Protective Services to take action. They sought to terminate the parental rights of Seth Welch and Tatiana Fusari, recognizing the grave danger their remaining children faced under their care. In August 2018, the couple was charged with homicide felony murder, a crime that carries grave consequences. The news of their charges quickly spread, capturing the attention of the public and the media. What made this case even more chilling was the viral video that surfaced, capturing Seth Welch and Tatiana Fusari's reaction to the charges. The video, which quickly gained traction online, showcased their extremely shocked reactions as they learned about the severity of the accusations against them. In June 2020, Seth Welch faced the consequences of his actions when he was convicted of first-degree murder. The court sentenced him to life in prison without the possibility of parole. In November 2021, Tatiana Fusari faced her own sentencing. She too was convicted of first-degree murder and received a life sentence without the possibility of parole. The court also handed down an additional sentence of 15 to 30 years for first-degree child abuse. The severity of the punishment reflected the gravity of her actions and the devastating consequences they had on her daughter. In a shocking and horrifying case that has gripped the nation, we delve into the story of Mitchell Blair, a mother from Detroit who was about to be sentenced for the brutal murders of her 2 children. Take a seat in the courtroom while we explore the chilling details of the crimes committed by Blair and the subsequent reaction to her life sentence. In the quiet streets of Detroit, a mother's betrayal and unimaginable cruelty unfolded, leaving a community in shock and disbelief. Mitchell Blair, a mother of 4, would forever be etched in the annals of infamy for the heinous crimes she committed against her flesh and blood. The timeline of this tragic case begins in the early 2010 when Blair's children, Stephen Barry and Stoney Blair, were subjected to a living nightmare within the confines of their own home. The details that emerged during the court proceedings painted a harrowing picture of abuse and torment that no child should ever endure. It was in 2012 that the life of 9-year-old Stephen Barry was tragically cut short. Blair, driven by a twisted rage, kicked and punched her young son, subjected him to unimaginable torture, and even made him consume toxic substances like Windex. The abuse inflicted upon Stephen was relentless, leaving him scarred both physically and emotionally. The following year, in 2013, Blair turned her malevolence towards her 13-year-old daughter, Stoney Blair. The young girl became a victim of her mother's sadistic tendencies, enduring starvation, suffocation, scalding water, and repeated blows to the head. Stoney's life was tragically extinguished, leaving behind a legacy of pain and suffering. The true extent of the horror within the Blair household remained hidden until March 24, 2015. A crew carrying out an eviction at the family's residence in the Martin Luther King apartments stumbled upon a chilling discovery that would send shockwaves through the community. Deep within a freezer, the lifeless bodies of Stephen Barry and Stoney Blair were found, their young lives tragically cut short by the hands of their own mother. The revelation of the children's bodies marked the beginning of a long and arduous legal process that would ultimately bring Mitchell Blair to justice. As the court proceedings unfolded, the shocking details of the abuse inflicted upon Stephen and Stoney emerged, leaving those in the courtroom and the wider public in a state of disbelief. Blair's defense attorney argued that her actions were a result of her own history of abuse and lack of support, but the prosecution countered that there was no evidence to support her claims of her children being abusive toward their siblings. Blair's court hearings weren't without their fare of drama, as she had multiple outbursts and often had to be taken out of the court.
I did it, but that does not negate the fact that they were never there for their children. I had to struggle with them all the time. They were never there.
In the face of overwhelming evidence, Mitchell Blair pleaded guilty to first-degree murder in the death of her daughter and felony murder in the death of her son. The sentencing hearing was a somber affair, with Wayne County Circuit Judge Dana Hathaway sentencing Blair to mandatory life, in prison without the possibility of parole, ensuring that she would never walk free again. However, Blair showed no remorse for her actions and even began taking some parting shots at the father of Stoney.
You lived well without seeing them throughout their whole life, so live well now. But you ain't got nothing to say to me for what I did for my child, period.
Ms. Fowler, you have a right to speak this morning if you'd like. You don't have any obligation to speak, but if you'd like to choose to speak, now is the time to do it.
Yes, I would like to say something.
Go ahead.
I'm innocent. You all. You're garbage.
Jalissa Taylor. Let's head to the Minnesota District Court, where Jalissa Taylor, a mother who committed an unimaginable crime against her own child, is about to be sentenced. Take a seat in the courtroom while we discuss the heinous crime Jalissa Taylor committed and her eventual sentencing, as she reacts to receiving a life sentence without the possibility of parole. On that fateful day of May 20th, 2022, Jalissa Taylor, a 29-year-old woman from Spring Park, Minnesota, forever changed the lives of those around her. Authorities revealed that Taylor's innocent 6-year-old son, Eli Hart, became the victim of her heinous act. The events that unfolded that day were beyond comprehension. Taylor, in a fit of rage or perhaps driven by something even more sinister, shot Eli multiple times with a shotgun inside her vehicle. The sheer brutality of the act is difficult to fathom as a mother turned against her own flesh and blood. But the horror did not end there. After committing this unspeakable act, Taylor went to great lengths to conceal her crime. She hid Eli's lifeless body in the trunk of her car, a place where no child should ever be found. It was only a matter of time before the truth came to light. On that same day, fate intervened when Orono police pulled Taylor over. A concerned citizen had reported her erratic behavior, noting a shattered rear window and a blown-out tire on her vehicle. Little did the officers know the horror that awaited them. As they approached Taylor's car, they could sense something was terribly wrong. Their suspicions were confirmed when they discovered the lifeless body of Eli Hart in the trunk.
During and through the investigation, they identified blood and what looked like other material inside the vehicle. After some time of investigations, they determined and located a body inside the trunk.
The shock and disbelief that washed over them were mirrored in the eyes of the community. How could a mother be capable of such a heinous act? The tragedy of Eli's death reverberated through the tight-knit community, leaving everyone grappling with a profound sense of loss and sorrow. Taylor's arrest sent shockwaves through the community as the reality of what had transpired began to sink in. The justice system swiftly took action, charging Taylor with first-degree murder. The trial that followed was a harrowing experience for all involved. The evidence against Taylor was overwhelming, leaving no room for doubt. The jury, after carefully considering the facts, found her guilty on all counts, including first- and second-degree murder.
Nothing I do would bring justice to this situation. Nothing I do would relieve any of the pain that you caused by doing that. But what is, according to law, the just and fair sentence for what you did is what Mr. Allard said, and that is life in prison without the possibility of parole.
Jalissa Taylor's heinous crime against her 6-year-old son, Eli Hart, has resulted in a life sentence without the possibility of parole. However, Jalissa Taylor's reaction to her sentence was shocking, showing an utter lack of remorse. As the court proceedings ended, she could be seen giving the middle finger to the cameraman in the courtroom. As we come to the end of this video of kids killers reacting to life sentences, each case serves as a stark reminder of the importance of vigilance and the responsibility we all have to protect the youngest members of our society. For more fascinating videos like this, click on the card showing on your screens and I'll be waiting.